So as this says, the risks to data security are real, and they are. So our recommendations are that they should reconsider selecting Konnech Poll Chief software. When this was written, that had not happened yet. We have been told by Al Abrowich that they have in fact decided not to use Konnech, but that is still potentially up in the air. So we're hoping very much that there can be additional confirmation of that decision. Konnech is linked through its Chinese affiliates to the Chinese Communist Party. I'll use the abbreviation CCP in this briefing. That refers to the Chinese Communist Party. And also, we think that there would be a statewide risk. Obviously, there's data security issues statewide if this is used in any local county, given that Governor Youngkin banned TikTok and banned WeChat, but we would want to see any Chinese affiliated software that's especially tied to elections banned for the use in county offices. We also think there's a local reputational risk if they use it. And again, it's not completely confirmed that they're not, we haven't seen the contract completely buried 6 feet under, because it would really put the registrar and their staff in the position of releasing the names of U.S. persons, election officers, who are also, of course, registered voters in Virginia, to potential risk given the Chinese corporate affiliations of this company. And we use Airtable, so there's actually a cheaper option, easy to use. Fairfax is using it, Loudoun is using it. So what does Konnech do? Konnech, the software package is called Poll Chief, and its people, its equipment is polling places. Think of it as a big database system, right, with a lot of front end. And it's many featured, it's fully featured, it's relatively easy to use. They will come in and customize it for you. And you can you can pay your workers with this, getting their social security number and their banking information. You get full date of birth, driver's license, and so on. It's implemented in different ways in different counties. In Fairfax, they did not tie it into the HR system. So in Fairfax, they didn't give social security number and banking information, but they did give full date of birth, email, phone number, and so on. And when the Chinese government as background here, looks for data, they're looking for data that they just pull in and integrate with all of the other data that they have. And they have a lot of other data because they breach our systems continuously. And there were major breaches, for example, in 2014 of the Office of Personnel Management for the federal government and so on. They already have a lot of information. This just gives them more information. It also is used as a standard kind of inventory system for equipment, but that includes all of your chain of custody logs, everything that you're doing. They do complete assessments and descriptions of all of the polling places, including not just their physical security, but their network systems and their network security. And then this is also used to communicate. So it's a platform for communications with all the election officers. So all those communications are captured and stored. So they have two companies, and this is important to understand. There is a Konnech US, which is what people talk about, and that's based in Michigan, was started in 2002, and that's what sells the Poll Chief software in the US. What was revealed by True the Vote in August, and then was later admitted to by Eugene Yu, president of Konnech, and subsequently has been proven, very carefully, is that they also had two Chinese companies, and one was founded in 2005, the Jinhua, and forgive my Chinese pronunciation on all of these, I'm to anglicize it, Jinhua Yulian Network Technology Company. And this was providing election services to the Chinese government, just as Konnech Inc. was providing election services to US entities. Then it continued through 2021, but it essentially was replaced in parallel with a successor company called Jinhua Hongzheng Technology. And Hongzheng became a major provider. Over 400 electoral units in China are currently using its services. But both Jinhua Yulian and Hongzheng were providing services to the Communist Party of China and the People's Congress, which is an outreach part. It's essentially the lipstick on the pig of the Chinese Communist Party. So the customers that Jinhua Yulian and Jinhua Hongzhen had was all of the levels of the Communist Party National People's Congress, which is the entire set of any local entity that's doing any of these so-called votes. And then more importantly, the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, which is the major, I think, Politburo. It's the leadership group that runs what is called the United Front organizations. They're the group that infiltrates the governments and presents, does everything that they can to influence Chinese diaspora, people that are Chinese who are in other countries, and to influence decision-making. And they do this in a variety of ways, from the fact that we now have Chinese police stations in numerous cities across the US that the Biden government is allowed to place in place, to threats, to bribery, to you name it. But they have a number of institutions across the US. And they work, the Workers' Federation and the Youth Federation and the Women's Federation and all these other communist groups. And they also have as a customer the US Konnech, because they provide all of the design and software and development and trouble ticketing services to Konnech. So Konnech also has a small US staff, which does some of these things as well, but mostly coordinates with the Chinese service, which is, classic sort of offshore outsourcing, right? Their customers that have already canceled include the city of Detroit, where all of this started. Detroit was their first customer. The three larger counties in Northern Virginia, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William, Johnson County in Kansas, and a number of others. So all of those are groups that have canceled. So just to establish, I'm going to make this a tiny bit smaller. Can you see that at all?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk through it. And remember, yeah, all of you are going to get copies of this PowerPoint, right, in PDF, and all of the links are active. So you'll be able to follow up on everything. And by the way, I didn't establish this, but just to go back, this is derived, this is not original research. Some of it is, but most of it is not. Most of this comes from other citizen researchers, particularly a Substack researcher called Konnech. They all use pseudonyms. I took their research and went back, and if I could find the original link, right, if I could, and I could verify it, and I could make my own screenshot, so it wasn't secondary, then I used it in this briefing. But 90% of this comes from Konnech, who himself has pulled in research from other citizen researchers. These are independent journalists, absolutely superb, doing the job that mainstream media should be doing. And so, credit to them for all of this. And these two websites, one of which created the first group, right, Yulian, right, which started in 2005, and the other one, the successor organization, Hongzhen, which started in 2015, were both created by Konnech emails. EYU Connect, EugeneUConnect.com is the registrant contact email for Yulian, and admin@Konnech.com is the registrant email for Hongzhen. So Eugene Yu actually created the websites and was a founder of both of these organizations. Many of these links, by the way, are archive links. So we go to a place called archive.org, which is where you can see old websites that have since been eliminated. Many of them are in Chinese. All translation was done with automated translation software. So Fairfax County terminated the contract with Konnech on October 5th in, as they called, an abundance of caution. This is from the electoral board minutes. It's actually and then we also published at our website, part of our article on this whole thing at the fairfaxgop.org website, the official statement from Fairfax County Office of Elections, which was that they had canceled contract termination, pulled the database by October 5th, which was the day after the arrest of the president of Konnech, Eugene Yu. They had taken everything out, basically. Now they're using Airtable, which we recommend. Prince William, same thing. They did it on October 7th, a little bit later, but they got together. This is from their electoral board minutes, which my colleague who has an election integrity working group in Prince William sent me. And they stated that they were basically removing everything and noted that there would be issues with that, which there were. It was a scramble because we had an election coming up, but they did it. They went just directly onto Excel, and they announced it on Twitter. Effective this week, we've suspended using Poll Chief to avoid any further data issues. And Loudon did it on October 6th. So really, if he was, within 3 days after the arrest, all 3 counties had yanked Konnech out of their systems. This is from the Loudon Electoral Board minutes, and Loudon announced it in an interview with the media. And I think they framed it in an interesting way. The office has had a harder time recruiting poll workers in recent years due to increased scrutiny on elections. I'm not sure that that's the reason, but so they did eventually decide to stop using it. The last thing we need is for our election officers to feel like we're not doing everything we can to protect them. And this goes to the other issue that I raised earlier, which is, do you really want your registrars and your staff to be put in a position where they have to release these names to potential risk? Now, on December 13th, Virginia Beach voted to purchase it, although we've been told the contract isn't signed, and we've been told they've reversed that decision. We have a little background on Dave Belote, who is the Democrat member of the board. He has been linked in the media to another controversial Chinese business venture. You can follow up all of these links when you get the PowerPoint, but in 2020 and 21, his company had a role as an advisor to GH America Energy. It's owned by a tightly linked to the Chinese Communist Party, Chinese billionaire. I believe he's the second richest billionaire in China. His name is Sun Guangjin, and his company is Xinjiang Guanghui, hence the GH, Guanghui, industry investment. He's in the part of the country where the Uyghurs are all imprisoned. He has no problems, by the way, using coal and all kinds of, traditional fossil fuels there, but he is trying to buy up US land, and did buy up US land around Laughlin Air Base. You may be following that the Chinese are buying land for agricultural and other purposes around US air bases. This is a pilot training air base. And Belote basically represented him in trying to get a permit to build wind farms, because that's what Belote's business does. And they didn't succeed. They didn't succeed because of a lot of pushback, and because of Texas actually passed a bill saying you cannot do this. Foreign adversary entities cannot buy land and put in wind farms around critically needed US military installations. So Konnech documents cited in the warrant. He was arrested October 4th. There were warrants from both Michigan and LA. Without getting into the details of the back and forth and all the different warrants, the warrant itself came out of the Public Integrity Division of the LA DA's office. They began the investigation, they say, June of 2022. According to True the Vote, the FBI was investigating them long before that, but this is the local LA investigation. He's arrested in Michigan for data theft. He's then extradited to LA. The warrant itself quotes a project manager with Konnech confirming that any employee for the Chinese contractors, that would be those Chinese companies working on Poll Chief, had, quotes, super administration privileges for all clients. And this project manager said there was indeed a huge security issue. Again, the warrant also says that he's saying, maybe we should stop doing that, right? So he says that they need to begin protecting the security, privacy, and confidentiality of client data. So they're no longer going to send personal identifying information when they fix the software. So fixing the software can be interpreted 2 ways. It can be interpreted as fixes being done over on the development side in China, which they admitted they were doing, or it could be where they dive into your system locally, right, which is the contract here, which is where we say here in Fairfax in our contract, which fortunately they ended, that they will have sufficient access to the county's system, file dumps, screen dumps, and error reports, and with sufficient support and test time on the county's computer system to duplicate the problem. So that's kind of carte blanche, and we don't know how much that was used, but we certainly know that they were constantly being given trouble tickets, and presumably those trouble tickets became an opportunity to enter the county's system. Not any longer. On October 10th, Konnech posted, I'm sorry, they actually posted this earlier. It was through October 10th. They posted it close to September 10th. And they removed it right after October 10th, like the 12th or so. So they posted a document called The Truth About Konnech, in which they admitted Konnech formed a research and development subsidiary in Jinhua, in China, Jinhua Konnech in 2005. So that's that first company, right? So now they're saying, yeah, we did it. And that team worked on developing and testing software for managing election logistics. And yes, it was carried out. They say, oh, well, we never used actual data. It was only dummy data. Okay, maybe. And then they claimed that that was totally closed. The Jinhua Konnech, that first company, was closed in 2021. And that's true. They did close it in 21. We found the documents for it. They removed the document shortly after, but of course, archive.org knows all. The New York Times, they also did an interview with the New York Times in which they admitted having it and saying they had shuttered it in 2021, that he no longer had employees there, and that did indeed get shuttered. I want to note here what is missing. What is missing is any mention of Hongzhen, which is that second company, the successor company that Eugene Yu also created in 2015. He doesn't admit to anything about that. We're going to see the links between what happened between Julian and Hongzhen, because really Hongzhen took over from Julian to a large extent. So this is an ongoing investigation. Let's just go back and look at what happened with Eugene Yu. They dropped the initial set of charges, but they did it what they call without prejudice, saying that a pending investigation could go on. And there was a statement given to a mainstream media group in Michigan, Center Square, which does state news, where they said, no, we've assembled a new team and we're looking at this, we're going on. There's an immense amount of digital data. They then transferred in, they put the entire public integrity division under new control, which was not encouraging. It's now run not independently, but by the chief of staff of DA Gascon, who is known as a very hard left DA. But then on December 7th, they announced that they were trying to arrange methods for transferring 350 terabytes of data for the ongoing investigation. So we don't really know where this is. There is clearly an ongoing investigation. There are court documents stating that there's 350 terabytes being transferred or handed around between the DA's office and Eugene Yu. So there's a lot in play here. And January 9th, which is just coming up this Monday, Eugene Yu is slated to go back to court for another hearing in Los Angeles. We don't know what's going to happen. So let's look at the first company. Jinhua Yulian Network Company was founded in 2005. We've seen that he founded the website. This is where it is, just so you know. It's over here. It's right on the coast. It's considered the province, right? Zhejiang is the second or third richest province in China. So think of it as a kind of Silicon Valley. It's kind of a tech center. So we have from Quanzi, which is the equivalent of like a Facebook job search site, right? So this was describing Yulian Network. It's the official Quanzi site for that. And in it, here's the English translation, just so you can see. And what it says is that Yulian Network Technology, founded in December, is an American IT technology company, Konnech Inc. R&D subsidiary of China. It's a little confusing who's a subsidiary of who as time goes on, but at present it develops web-based management system. And then it says, here's what Konnech is. And it gives them their unified social credit code, because as you probably know, every business and every individual has to have a social credit code that can be looked up so that they can see if you're on the bad list or the good list. So this certainly connects them. We also have their website, an archived website from 2013. This is the only website that is still in existence for Julian network technology. It's on archive.org. Again, these were all found. This one was found by an Australian researcher and then publicized by Konnech. And you can go, again, you can go see all of these, right? The links are live. You can go get the PowerPoint, go check out for yourself. This is the English translation of that Chinese website. And under the single customer case that they list is the election management solutions in Detroit, Michigan, which of course was Konnech USA's first client. And they go in some detail about all the functionality that they're providing, which is the functionality that Virginia Beach would have gotten or will get if they do that contract. It's certainly the functionality that we had and got rid of in Fairfax, Prince Leon, and Prince William. So here is more. They talk about as well the U.S. Overseas Voter Election Management System. In 2010, Konnech US, this is 5 years after they created Xinhua Julian Network, okay? Konnech US got a DoD contract as part of a pilot program. Several companies got pilot contracts to do the overseas AB absentee ballots for US military and overseas civilians. So this was an online app that you would put on your phone. And they said, oh, well, the data isn't persistent and so on. And it may not have been, but the app was. So once you put the Konnech app on your phone, it tracked everywhere you were. They did not continue the contract after 2010 from what we've been able to identify through the DoD. It is possible that they are continuing to get some state contracts to support this for UOCAVA, which is military ballots currently. They sold, however, the function that they were doing for this to another company called Votum. So they got out of this business, but they did have this, they certainly were trying for the US military business with a persistent app in 2010. And they talk about it at the 2013 website. Now, when they talk about what they're doing, they include their work for the Communist Party of China. So, this doesn't have this spelled out, but I'll just, you probably can't read it. I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights from it. After the 17th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, with continuous and in-depth development of political reforms, et cetera, we have a senior professional team engaged in electoral services and management for a long time. Yeah, since 2002 in the US. And they talk about the comrade Jiang Zemin, who was the president and head of the CCP, pointed out in his report in the 16th National Congress and so on. So I'm just saying they take their inspiration, they take their, their direction, and their clients were certainly the Communist Party of China. So that's Julian. Then they create the second company, Eugene Yu Konnech, creates a second company, Hongzhen, in 2015. Hongzhen Technology Company is not only in the same district, in the same city, Xinhua City, it's literally a 20-minute drive from Xinhua Julian. So 2015 is an important year. China kind of began building up its nuclear, its military, and essentially the United Front activities ramped up big time at that time. So at that time, we also have Julian creates, Eugene Yu creates this company. And let's go on. It's a successor company. Now, this site is Weibo.com. This is the business Facebook. So this is actually, if you go to that link, you'll see it's a verified corporate account. This is from 2016, so it's roughly a year after the company is created. And what it says is they claim more than 20 government customers in North America. And what they say is Hongzhen is pursuing blah, blah, blah. Founded in November 2005, its predecessor, Konnech Limited, is a software company, right? And then more than 20 government customers in North America. They have Edmonton, Canada as well, and Calgary, Canada, and a couple others. But most of them are in the United States. So we have Hung Sen claiming its status as a successor to the initial Konnech. We also have their archived corporate website, in which they say, and this is a translation done with Google Translate iPhone app, because it was graphical. So I couldn't do it using the other one, just so you know. So what this one says at their 2021 archived site, we have from the operation service of the interaction platform for voter election information services in the United States. So it's very specific in citing that. So this doesn't just go back to Jinhua in 2016. It isn't just their official Facebook page. It's at their 2021 corporate website as well. We then have, they mention a patent. So let's talk about this patent, because this also shows the links between all of these. They applied for a patent for network system and data processing method for absentee elections. Okay, that's awesome. So let's look at that patent. That patent, okay, was filed by Jinhua Konnech Incorporated, says it. You'll have the link when you get this, okay? This is the google.com patents, database, which you can go to anytime you want to search a patent. Used to do patent research for folks. And the current assignee, however you say that, in 2015, just as they got started, right, is Jinhua Hung Sen Technology. So that's awesome, great. They not only created the website for them, they also transferred their patents to them. So if we go to their Weibo account, again, official Facebook account for Jinhua Hung Sen Technology, we see that they list all of these seals of their clients, right? And look at the second column, the two there. It has the blue on the bottom. The top is Loudon, the bottom is Prince William. In case you don't happen to know what those seals are, here they are. This is what we just saw in the earlier slide. This is Loudon. This is Prince William. And that's Hung Sen Technology. That's the big one. That's the one that got all the assets, right? That was the transition. So if we go to Connect US in 2016, same time, they also display at their archived website, not now, but that back then, the Prince William logo seal and the Loudon seal. So what do they provide? What does Hung Sen, this big company that, again, remind you that Eugene Yu has not said he's broken with, Eugene Yu did not say had closed down, because it hasn't, it's going strong, but that he is tightly linked to. What do they do? Okay, so this again is from the official Weibo Facebook verified corporate account. And it says they focus on, now we're talking about the Chinese side. What do they do for the Chinese government? Election voting and voting related software products and overall solutions for the party and government organs of governments at all levels, the National People's Congress, the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, and then the Workers' Federation, Youth Federation, Women's Federation, and so on. They actually, by now, as you go to their website, the current website for Hung Sen, are providing election services for 400 different entities under the National People's Congress, because it's sort of fractal, right? It goes down to the lowest level and then works its way up. But the People's Congress is the rubber stamp to the CCP's rule over China. So it is, and this is their major client because they have elections. To give you an example of an election under the People's Congress, once you get to the equivalent, probably say, of our state legislative elections in a state, you are allowed to have 110% of the number of candidates as there are positions. In other words, if you have 10 legislative seats open, you can have 11 people running, which means 10 of those people are incumbents who just take their seat again. And all of the candidates have to be approved by the Chinese Communist Party. So it's an election, and not a Konnech China run by Hung Sen is not the same as an election here. Hung Sen, which we, so far as we know, they may still be working with, also partners with 5 Chinese telecom companies. This is from their current website. It also is in their archived website. and we list them here. Every single one of those 5 is banned by either the US Federal Communications Commission or the State Department, or both. So Konnech has certainly been connected to these Chinese companies. These Chinese companies absolutely provide services to the Chinese Communist Party and to its totalitarian government and to its outreach, right, through the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, which runs the United Front, its outreach into other countries. But that's not just here, it's Japan, it's Taiwan, it's Europe, it's everywhere. The United Front has a presence to try and establish Chinese totalitarian hegemony over not just the Chinese citizens who are overseas so that they can become essentially part of this outreach, but also to influence US decision-making. So on December 13th, Virginia Beach Electoral Board voted to approve Konnech after there had been widespread publicity over the problems, which were raised in that meeting in which they dismissed. In that meeting, we are told. And on December 16th, 3 days later, Governor Youngkin banned TikTok and WeChat. So from a policy point of view, if you can ban TikTok and WeChat for state use, it would seem to be advisable to also ban Konnech for county use. Now, let's step back for a second and say, is there a law? So for a framework to think about this, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert on sanctions law. I have, however, written and researched a lot about sanctions law over my career. So I just think there's a possibility that this will all come under the auspices of the International Emergency Economic, which was passed in '77 by Jimmy Carter. And this still in effect, that's the create an executive order invoking a national emergency due to an outside threat, right? Not an inside one. We know that they do that all the time under this administration, but an outside threat. So a foreign adversary. So let's look at this. Trump issued an executive order which was about foreign involvement, foreign interference in a United States election. Didn't have to deal with data being released yet, but it does cite IEPA, right? And that's the law that we just looked at previously from '77. And it establishes that we don't want foreigners interfering in our elections. And we would argue, I would argue, that Konnech potentially, giving the data overseas, or giving, again, the data doesn't have to be in overseas servers. The data doesn't have to be, all that matters is who's getting access to the data. If the servers were the only issue, if the geographic location of the servers were the only issue, we would never worry because there would be no breaches of servers as long as they're in the US. Well, servers in the US get breached all the time. In this case, it wasn't a breach because by contract, Konnech was allowing their consulting companies in China access to databases. It wasn't a question of the database location per se, although that can be a factor. It's who gets access. So this particular executive order on election interference is renewed, and it was renewed by Biden again. And I want to make one comment as we go to the next slide. I'm sorry, not this slide. I'll make it in a second. So in 2019, we have a really important executive order issued again by Trump, which deals with foreign interference in information and communications. So now we're getting into that whole who had access to the data, right? And both of these executive orders were in effect, are in effect still, at the time that Konnech admits using Chinese-based consultants and companies. And the same time that the warrant against Konnech by LA County says that he gave Chinese-based asset super administration privileges to access the data, right? Which is where I'm saying it doesn't matter what the servers are, it matters who has access. This has relevant language, again, links for everything, always, always. And now I'm going to make my comment. So Biden has issued 2 very good executive orders that build on this background. They build on these, they cite IEPA, they cite Executive Order 13873. And that goes to the bipartisan aspect of rejecting Chinese access to US data. When Fairfax Loudoun and Prince William all decided not to have Konnech in their systems within 3 days after Eugene Yu was arrested. The majorities on all three of those electoral boards by law were Democratic majorities. So those decisions were not made in some right-wing way. Those were made under Democratic majority direction to those registrars. Those registrars consulted with their electoral boards, every single one. The two strongest executive orders that potentially protect US data from foreign adversaries, 14034 cites China specifically, were done by Biden. This is a bipartisan concern. This is not just a Republican concern. So, and these, again, they protect American sensitive data. They apply the ongoing emergency to personal data in foreign adversary software equipment and networks. This 14034 really applies. And then Biden issued another one, which actually cited back to 14034, but instead of citing IEPA, he brings in a new law, which is the Defense Production Act of 1950. Again, trying to protect personally identifiable information, any kind of sensitive data of US citizens accessed in any way by foreign adversaries. What happens if you violate IEPA? Well, right now the fine is up to 330,000, and the prison, the criminal, that's a civil fine. Criminal fines are up to $1 million or 20 years imprisonment. They do enforce this. I haven't ever seen recently, I'd have to go back and look, I haven't dealt with this for a few years. 2016 was the last time I was deeply into IEPA and enforcement and sanctions law. But they certainly will do very, very large fines for companies. I don't know what they would do if the violation is made by a local board. Maybe nothing. But if they want to find out, there is a place where you can go, and the Virginia Electoral Board could reach out to the US Treasury Office of Foreign Assets Control, which is what enforces this. And you can self-disclose and you can get a determination. If we do this, is it possible that it would violate any one of these executive orders and the underlying law, which is largely IEPA? So let's go back. There's a risk. We think it's a significant risk to this data security of people who are in the Konnech database. There's also a risk to the systems that allow Konnech to enter them in order to do troubleshooting by contract. And there's additional risk, I think, in the two additional functions of the poll chief software, which give them complete access to all information about your equipment, and perhaps more importantly, complete information about all of the polling place security measures. We don't think that the staff should be put in a position of potentially releasing information of US persons to a potential risk of exposure to the Chinese affiliate. And remember, Hong Zeng has not been repudiated by US Konnech at all. And that's the real company that received all of the successor assets. And we also think the state needs to take a role here because leadership needs to be shown to help counties have some guidance in making the right decision here. And besides which, you can use Airtable. Fairfax and Loudoun are using it. They'll be happy to help, and it's cheaper. So, maybe there are some options here that would enable this to be a really good decision. And again, we think that the news is happy that they have decided not to use it, but we do think you probably need to close that sale as much as possible to make sure that that's going to be the final outcome. And there are other options as well besides Airtable. I'm not an Airtable salesperson. I'm just saying that's what they both are using. But you don't want to use Konnech. And that's the end of this. And can we open it for questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate the brief. I think a lot of us are surprised and shocked. So aside from the knowledge that I think everybody's picking up, what do you suggest for the average person to do? Or is there something other than knowing and talking to your local, election board? Or how does this work for us?
You all know your own community. What we have done is to try and reinforce for our registrar and our electoral board, the information we had limited information when they had to make this decision. They did it based on Eugene Yu's arrest. Those charges were subsequently dismissed. We think he's going back Monday to court on the basis of the transfer of this data. But it's possible he will go back and charges will be permanently dismissed. They shouldn't be. I mean, maybe those particular charges should be, but the risk has nothing to do with, that particular release of data by contract by LA County. The risk has to do with this close affiliation with companies in China that are servicing the CCP, and that, from what we know, may still be linked directly to Eugene Yu's company in Michigan. So anything you can do to make sure that Virginia Beach Electoral Board does not end up going with Konnech. They have till February, I gather, on the current contract, or I think I've read, so maybe others can clarify this, which is with a company called Easy Vote. It's possible that they could just continue with that or find other things. Anything that you can do to help them find their way to a solution that is not Konnech, but that serves their needs, that would really be good. We're suggesting Airtable just because Fairfax and Loudoun are using it and it's cheaper for them. But anything we can do to give them an easy way to solve what they need to do to run an election without using a communist Chinese party linked company that may in fact be in violation of federal law. So write your electoral board members, give them a call, do what you can to try and also, I think at the state level, anyone who can reach out to your representatives in the state legislature or the AG's office, or anyone who can help to bring this to the attention of decision makers and policymakers at the state level so that they can provide some guidance statewide. I think that would be helpful. There are lots of risks here.
Thank you.
Questions?
This is Bill Duke again. I'd like to ask you a question, if I may. You mentioned Easy Vote. I'm an election officer for Virginia Beach, and we were trained on, I think it was on the Easy Vote system for the last election. That's correct.
No.
And
the Easy Vote is the software for the election officials. So we weren't trained on that. That's just what they use right now, and that's the one that the contract's going to end. You were trained on poll pads. No ink poll pads. That's the new thing. Remember?
Can you come up and speak in this because the audience can't see?
Oh, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
but
no,
did we talk last night. Did I give you that brochure on no ink? Were you there at
Yes.
that meeting? Okay.
Yes.
So my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, that the Konnech is a software for election officials' data, right?
Right.
It's not something that we're trained on. At the registrar's office, they're trained on it and they use it and they want it. They're the ones that want it. We election officials used to have, what was the software that we had before No Ink? It was just, it wasn't a poll pad, but it was, I don't remember the old system. Then this year they bought the No Ink, which is not really related to Konnech.
Yeah,
So
this
that's
is
what you were
like
trained on. Yeah.
the images in your brochure that you showed me did not resemble the machines that we were most recently trained.
That's correct. Because that is no, remember the green brochure you gave me last night? Yeah.
Yeah, no, this one was a small device that stood on a stand in front of the election official. And then
That's the electronic poll pad.
exactly.
That's No Ink. That has
Who
nothing.
provides that?
Nothing, No Ink. They're a St. Louis company. We got all these machines from all these places. It's just insidious. I mean, there's just like, can't we just go simple? But anyway,
Okay,
that's
no,
another-
that was
yeah,
the guy who was at the training
Knowink.
center. Yeah, right.
He's trying to answer.
Oh, go ahead. Christine, did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah. So there's no connection at all between No Ink and Konnech. From nothing that I've seen anywhere. And the functions are completely different. Konnech think of it as like an office manager software, right? It helps them schedule the poll officers, right? The election officers. It helps them figure out which place you're assigned to. It helps them figure out where to take the equipment after it's gone through logic and accuracy testing, the scanners, the poll pads, your ballot on demand, if you have those, anything like that, all of the equipment it sorts. And it lets them, they have to have a database somewhere of all the polling places, right? And they have to, by law, do a certain amount of security assessments and record those security assessments for the polling places. So it gives them a database for that too. It's just the management piece. But when you have that management piece, you've got the inside track to everything about the operations of that election. It does not touch voter registration. It does not, so it's not touching the poll pads, it's not touching voter registration, and it's not touching ballots. It has nothing to do with any of the actual equipment used in the election at that level, but it's tracking all of that
Right.
from where it is. Think of it as like a warehouse and personnel HR management tool.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's tracking the most interested citizens in the city on elections, because we're, people that sign up as election officials are the most interested in ensuring, there's honesty and integrity with our elections. So it's just, to me, it's like, yikes. It's letting the hen or the wolf into the hen house. It's just kind of weird that they would do that. But
Thank you both for this clarification. It helps me a lot to understand what's going on, but it also makes me think that this piece of software for warehouse management, as you say,
And personnel.
and personnel, it's ridiculously simple. And I don't see why we would have to go to China to get somebody to tell us where our boxes are.
that's a good question. I mean, bottom line is, now I did hear at the electoral board meeting, they mentioned Easy Vote. And the reason they said, well, Easy Vote had been breached earlier in the year. And I knew that. I mean, I knew there was a breach, but I also knew about it because I knew about Konnech from True the Vote people. That was before Virginia Beach even voted to buy the software. So their sort of excuse, if you will, had to do with the breach of Easy Vote. Well, the contract is ending. I don't remember exactly when, but it's coming up, which is why I think they wanted to go with a completely new company. So they're just shifting.
An Easy Vote contract is ending?
Yes, it's ending. And that's for the election officials currently, but it's already been breached. It's like, well, okay. So we want to add more fuel to it. I don't know. It just,
let me just add something on that breach too. And maybe there was more than one breach, but the one that when you guys mentioned this to me, I looked, and what it was 3 election officers entered their social security numbers. They voluntarily uploaded information into Easy Vote, and I think their bank information. Somehow Easy Vote let them put that information in. I don't know if that's a breach or it's a failure of the software fields. Like the field shouldn't have even been there. They shouldn't have been able to enter that information. So somehow they got that information in. But if you search it, it doesn't appear to be an external breach. It appears to have been a failure of the design of the software, the maintenance of the software, possibly by the office. When users breach it because they accidentally upload information they're not supposed to upload, that's not the same as a foreign adversary breaching it.
my understanding, maybe I don't remember exactly what I read, but I thought Easy Vote was breached just generally throughout the country. There was some breach that happened in the United States with that
I don't know. I'll
software.
have to look for that.
I probably should look at that further, but that was kind of my thinking, and I'd read it months and months ago. It was, it was probably in the summer after the Konnech thing came to light with True the Vote.
Right. So worth looking into. But regardless, there is the other alternative. I mean, basically, we're looking at a relational database, right? I mean, that's all this is, with some communication software tied in. So when they had to replace it literally overnight or within a week in Fairfax, yanking out all the interface and everything else, they did it with Airtable because that's what Airtable does. And Airtable is a very robust, all-purpose sort of relational database software with very easy interfaces, so it's very easy to use, and lots of plugins, so you can add functionality. They're still tweaking it in Fairfax, but they like it because they say they can customize it more than they could with Konnech. As long as there's an alternative that's good, maybe additional alternatives need to be looked at. There's whatever you do, though, there would be no reason to consciously choose the company that has these links and has a history of sending data to companies linked to the Chinese Communist Party. Of all the choices you can make, Konnech would not be the one to make.
Yes. Can I ask one more question? Asset management in the software exists in very many forms in government, in Virginia government. All right. The VDOT, for example, they know where every inch of guardrail is in the state. Okay.
Right.
So an asset management system often is produced in-house at not tremendous expense, but why would you have an asset management system linked into your employee management system?
They're parallel functions, so they package it all as pull chief, but you buy them as modules, which means they're just different pieces of database, right? They're actually separate databases.
This is something, keep it simple. I do not understand why this election software, any machine, is just running roughshod in our country. I mean, it's like, I'm really one of those people that just believes in going back to the simplicity that we used to have. Clean voter rolls, paper ballots, no ballot harvesting, one voter day, not this long 45-day cycle. I mean, I don't understand. And I'm really hoping that by you bringing the attention to just one aspect of the machines and how dangerous they can be, it just brings more light to more people about, we don't have to have our lives ruled by machines. We don't. I mean, these are database. In big companies, they use database scheduling software to schedule people. Why can't they do it for something as simple as election officials? I don't know how many we have in the city, but it's like just
700 or something.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like, yeah.
It's there's always an attractive when you can package functionality and give it a name and tell people it's special and it's designed just for them, and they don't and not just doing a bunch of different Excel worksheets or databases or Access databases or MySQL databases. That's very attractive. And there's also a big push within every election office to buy the latest and greatest equipment. So it's just, there's that push in every industry.
Bill, we're pretty much running out of time. Christine, we really want to thank you. I've been in this city 42 years in this Virginia Beach politics and state politics, and I'm telling you, this is one of the most incredible reports that I've ever seen. The background, the digging, how you pulled all this together with the help of all these folks from around the state. It's unbelievable documented, and it kept evolving from when you first gave us the report, about a month, whenever it was, and up to where it is right now on the fourth phase. So this is going to go out to everybody after today. I mean, everybody. Now, bring everybody up to date. Senator Steph was brought to his attention, as you know, and he, instead of a governor's order, or executive order, to stop it from proliferating anywhere in the state, Bill now wants to get the legislation in place so that it can't be used anywhere in the state of Virginia. He wants to do it the right way and the permanent way. So I will keep you and everybody else abreast to what's going on with Bill. And if there's no other questions, let's really, oh, yes, ma'am. Okay, go ahead. Here. Hold on.
I just wanted to know how many people or states are aware of this connection with China?
It's the problem, I think, is that it has been widely publicized in conservative media. The New York Times, publicized it. LA Times publicized it. But then the instant that the first set of charges were dismissed, that was taken by everybody as somehow, dismissing all of the other information. So even though it's very serious, the tendency of everybody always is to go back to sleep.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to add one thing, and I don't know what's going on in Fairfax, but there's a small contingency, and I spoke briefly about it, of people that are trying, to push these changes on elections in the United States and in our counties and cities. Reaching out to our legislators is really, really important. And I don't know that writing a letter is going to go that far. It might, but reaching out to our delegates and our senators about how much we want life to be back in simplistic terms with our elections. There's something I saw on Telegram last night about what's going on in the Congress and how we had all these votes and there was no cheating that could happen. We saw live who was voting and what they were voting for. And bottom line is we need that back in our elections. So we need to, push our legislators to simplify elections. Does that make sense? So if you have any questions, get involved at the electoral board level. Christine and I were talking, they have a huge contingency of people to go, but we have to be really, careful when we go to these electoral board meetings and not alienate the electoral board and make them mad. I mean, we want to go there and be polite and learn. I mean, I've been going for 10 months. There's a lot to know, a lot to learn. So just that would be my last thing. Thank you.
Let me say as well, just one last thing. The more that you develop a relationship with your registrar, talk to your registrar, get to know your registrar, and assist them in any way you can, knowing that sometimes you will have a disagreement. That's really useful. I mean, that is tremendously helpful to try and get that channel of communication going.